Oh, this great illusion of power. Welcome, everyone, to our ad hoc annual meeting, not annual meeting. Please God, let's not make this annual. This is our special meeting to discuss one particular issue of our budget. And I would like to welcome everyone and thank you for taking the time out of your very busy day. And I'd like to also turn the program over to Rabbi Rose to begin us properly with a word or two of Torah.
Okay, hi everybody. Good morning. I'm so glad you made time to be here for this important moment, and I want to thank Daniel for his intro and invitation to speak. And I wanted just to say a little bit of Torah, a little word of Torah, to frame what's happening at this moment, but also to frame, what's coming up for the congregation um, over the next couple of months, over the next few months, I should say. And so here are my thoughts in the Torah portion in this week's Torah portion. There's really a very famous moment um, that I'll get to, but I want to just frame it by saying that last week I think a way to think about what's happening in the Torah. Last week we had the Ten Commandments, and the way I think about the Ten Commandments is it's sort of like the broad vision of Torah, the broad outlines, the Ten Commandments that will frame an entire way of being for a people, but a way of being that is not yet articulated. It hasn't been spelled out, just in these 10 magnificent utterances from God, which our tradition understands to be the very foundation of our entire tradition. So it's not yet at the level of specifics. It's at the broad vision, the outlines. And that was last week. And then in this week's Torah portion, which we read tomorrow in Minyan, and then of course on Thursday, and then on Shabbat, we get really into the nitty gritty. We get into the details, and the details, as we all know in our lives, is really where the magic happens and where the challenges really happen. The details are where we determine whether we will succeed in some direction we've taken or whether we'll have to go back to the drawing board. And so it's actually in this Torah portion that the Israelites make their commitment to fulfill the Brit in words that still resonate to this day, this week, at the very end of the Torah portion. After the Israelites have heard all of these details of their obligations and of laws that they never imagined that they're required to implement and to think about and to interpret and to put into practice in order to build a holy society. After all of these very detailed laws in this Torah portion, Mishpatim, they say at the end of it this very famous phrase, and I'll read it in Hebrew, and then I'll read it in English. Vayikach Sefer Habrit, vayikra ba'oznei ha'am, vayomru kol asher diber Adonai na'aseh v'nishma. So he took the record of the covenant, that is Moses, took all of these laws, and he read it aloud to the people. He read all of this in great detail, great detail, the specifics of this broad vision that they're now going to have to think about implementing. And they said, and here's the famous part that you've probably heard referred to before, all that Hashem has spoken, na'aseh v'nishma, we will do and we will listen. It's an odd idiom. We will do and we will listen, which is usually understood to mean, it's just emphatically, we will do it, we will heed it. So it's usually understood to that repetition, na'aseh, which means we will do, v'nishma, we will hear. But as I said, it's usually understood just to be an emphatic, we will definitely obey all that God has said. But the Talmud says something very surprising about this phrase, na'aseh v'nishma, we will do and we will listen. The Talmud says the following. Rabbi Elazar in the Gemara says that when the Jewish people gave precedent to we will do over we will listen, That is, because they said we will do first, and only afterwards did they say we will listen. Because of that, a divine voice emerged and said to them, "Who revealed to my children the secret that the ministering angels use?" Okay, so there's something about their phrasing, something about the fact that they said, "We will do," and then they said, "We will listen." That God said, "That's the secret that my angels use." Who revealed it to my children? So, what is this about? What's the secret that the Talmud talks about? Well, as I look back on our time together, um, I think that when I came into the synagogue, I sensed that this shul had this vision of itself that was as yet unarticulated. This vision that it was very clear that the synagogue wanted to move forward, wanted to embrace a new kind of future, and it wanted to do so in its very special Shari Torah way by honoring its past. But the vision of how to do that, the vision of how to build that future was not yet articulated. We, and I along with you, had a sense of where we wanted to go, but we didn't know exactly what it looked like. And it took an enormous amount of courage on the part of board leadership and on the part of staff and on the part of the congregation to take those steps into building something new out of a past that we honored so much, to do things in a new way. Naaseh v'nishma. We did before we fully understood exactly what that meant. And Rashi, and here I promise this is the last text I'll talk about. So for some of you, it might be too early. You haven't had enough coffee for a Torah study session. But Rashi says what this means, Naaseh v'nishma, that what it means that they said we will do before they said we will listen. It says he says that it means that they were prepared to do it before they heard exactly what it was all about. Instead of behaving in a more typical manner of someone who's asked to do something, who wants to listen first and really think about whether he or she can accept the obligation. Typically, someone asks something of us and we say, "Well, tell me what you got, and then I'll think about whether I'm up to it." But the Israelites, in their enthusiasm, embraced it and moved forward. And I want to say, and I'll close on this point, that what has so distinguished this synagogue over the last several years is your ability, the leadership and the congregation's ability to really embrace a future before we knew exactly what that was going to look like. And isn't that the nature of always moving forward into a new phase of our lives as individuals or as a community? It always requires a measure of enthusiasm and faith that are perhaps not warranted because we don't know the details. And what I want to say is that that impulse, that embrace, that open-hearted courage to go into the future, to begin to act before you know exactly what it's going to require, is needed now from the congregation more than ever. We've had enormous challenges that have been navigated so beautifully by your board and with incredible grace, skill, and wisdom by the staff, in particular by Jemmy. But more challenges lay ahead, and exciting ones. And as this congregation prepares to bring on a new rabbi, and you'll hear a little more about that later in this meeting, I want to encourage all of you to get ready to naaseh v'nishma, to embrace a future that's going to call on us to change in some exciting, amazing new ways, and to not be hesitant, but to know that if Shari Torah continues to embrace its future and continues to say, "I will do," then it will truly be able to honor its past by bringing that past with us into the next generation. So I want to ask you to build resolve and courage, not to hesitate, but to thoughtfully embrace the future and to take steps forward so we too can say, Naaseh v'nishma, and continue the amazing, amazing attributes of this magnificent, beautiful congregation that has this capacity always, it seems, to bring its past into its future. Thank you so much.
Yasher Koch. Thank you, Rabbi. We've got just a couple items of, one major item of business and one further item to keep everybody updated on what's going on. So I'd like to hand the program back over to Peter Lyman to present for us the updates to our annual budget.
Okay, thank you, Daniel. Can everyone hear me? Yes? Hello?
I can hear you.
Oh, you can.
Yep.
Okay.
Yes, we're all muted though.
All right. All right, but you can hear me. Okay. So let's just give a little background here. Back in June, when the Finance Committee put together the budget for the upcoming fiscal year, we were showing a projected deficit for the year of about $151,000, and felt that this was, given all the uncertainties regarding COVID and how long the building would be closed and so forth, we made the commitment that we would present a revised budget to our membership once we had roughly 6 months of actuals under our belt, and felt that from that point we could, at least make some halfway decent forecasts for the remainder of the fiscal year. And so that's the purpose of this presentation today, is to solicit approval for the new revised budget. So Jamie, can you put up that first slide? Okay. So sort of the bottom line here is we started off with a projected deficit of 151,000 for the fiscal year. The good news is, based on the actuals for the first 6 months and our projections for the remaining 6 months, we will actually end up with a small surplus of about $31,000. So there are a variety of reasons for that. So two components. One, revenues came in higher than anticipated. The original budget, we assumed roughly a 30% reduction in things like Yom Kippur appeal, dues, so forth. We've been pleasantly surprised that the actuals actually did much better than that 30% reduction. So we've done better as far as dues, Yom Kippur appeal, and donations in general. So, hats off to everybody, to our congregants, that we're realizing higher revenues than originally budgeted. We can add to that the Sisterhood's generous donation from the previous year's Hamantash and baking, and then the two, an increased rental stream from Pipster. I don't know if everyone knows, but Pipster is renting 2 additional rooms upstairs. I believe that started in January. So that has increased our revenue stream some. Lano is still honoring their parking agreement with us, even though their building, I think, has been pretty much closed. We're still receiving our monthly rental payments from Alano for the parking. But the two big items that we didn't budget for and were unanticipated, the big one was the $125,000 PPP grant that we got from the federal government. Hats off to Jamie for shepherding that through that process with our new bank, Bank of the West. They were very good as well. So that initial $125,000 loan has now been turned into a grant. We don't have to repay that. We met all the requirements. So that was a big boost. And then the other thing we received was a $15,000 outright grant from the Federation's community fund from the pool of money they raised during the COVID crisis. So revenues on that basis were up much higher than what we had budgeted. Okay, can we go to the expense side? After 6 months of actuals, we realized that with the building closed down, that our day-to-day operating expenses were lower than we budgeted. This kind of gives the detail. There were cuts in certain hours. Obviously, we're not doing any kiddushin, so Arena's not cooking. But generally, with that PPP loan, we were able to keep just about everybody payroll intact. So we did realize those savings going forward, and we expect those to continue to the end of June. So next slide, Jemmy. You can go through the details. So, sort of the bottom line here, my interpretation is, through a lot of hard work with Jemmy and the board and the finance committee, and some outright luck on things. We didn't know that there would be a PPP program or a Federation community grant, that we will end the year intact. I kind of call it skating into June, so that things turned out much better than I think we thought we would. But that raises a lot of challenges for next year. And basically, if you look at where we're headed in next year, we still don't have a good idea yet, I think, as to when the facilities will be reopened. I think we're shooting for high holidays. We don't know whether there'll be additional loans or grants from the government going forward. So still a lot of uncertainty. We have the issue with the heating and the cooling system. The cooling system is completely gone, as far as I know. We still have heat, but how long that continues, I don't know. And that is a significant capital expense. I think we're looking at least $800,000 to $1 million to overhaul the heating and cooling system. So we get to live another year, but we're going to face some significant challenges in the next fiscal year.
So I'm going to put up a poll on the screen, which is a simple vote, yes or no vote, to accept the revised budget. So
Okay.
I'm launching that right now.
Right. Okay.
Go ahead and start clicking
We
on
will
yes
vote.
or no.
So anything else you want to add, Jemmy?
No, Peter, I think you covered it beautifully. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. So
Peter,
yes.
Peter, can you give me an idea of how much the costs were for the building being closed with electricity, with lighting, everything else? Wasn't there money also saved from that, as well as from other things?
Yeah, no, absolutely, and that's what I'm talking about. I mean, there were some reductions in working hours, but yes, also the utilities things. I can have Jackie pull that together. Right. I think overall we came in roughly, I think 85,000 under budget as far as expenses.
I'm going to end the polling now, and we have 100%. So we have 82% voted, 100% in favor of approving the revised budget. Thank you.
So if you look, for instance, at the cooling system, that is a huge user of water. And given the fact that thing has pretty much has been shut down, there's been a savings there. And I'm sure there's been a savings on our gas usage and our electricity too. But I'll have Jackie pull those specific numbers together and get them to you. So
Okay.
those are
Thanks.
expenses that once we get up and running again, or they're going to come back. So, any other questions?
I see some questions in the chat, Peter.
Okay, read them out.
Well, so there was a note about that we borrowed $50,000 from our restricted funds at
Correct.
the Jewish Community Foundation, and we got the loan from PPP for over 125,000. So the surplus, this revised budget includes paying back that 50,000.
No, it doesn't.
It does.
It does.
I
No,
think it does. It's
it
noted
does.
on that.
All right, I can check with Jackie. I mean,
Right.
we true up with the cemetery at the end of the year, so we'll need to see whether if they ran a surplus this year, then that surplus has to be added on to the 50,000 that has to go back at some point to the cemetery fund. If they end up running a deficit for the fiscal year, that would be a deduct against the 50,000. So, but yeah, those funds will be returned when we can.
And the other question is saying, where is the HVAC replacement? It is not included in
No,
our
it's not.
operating budget. It is going to be a separate capital expense,
It
likely
has
a
to be.
capital campaign
Yes, it will have to be a capital
aiming
campaign.
towards 2025.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, it's a significant amount of money. We've started looking around for, potential financing on that. And again, that's pretty much in a preliminary stage right now. But regardless of whether we have, how much we have to go out and potentially borrow, I think we're still gonna need to see where their capital campaign could, would come in, but that's a discussion for the congregation. At some point it has to be repaired, and if we fall short on any potential capital campaign, that means we have to go out and borrow the money, and that most likely means that a lien would be placed against the building. And I don't think that's an action that anyone wants to take, but we may be forced into that. And of course, all of that would be subject to a vote from the congregation. So, but this has been a chronic problem. The last 10 years or so, we basically have been running small deficits to small surpluses, and no real money has been set aside for capital improvements on a consistent basis. So, and now that's showing up. Any other questions?
Well, you might have covered this, but in terms of expected dues and Yom Kippur appeal, you said we were expecting down 30%. We're better.
Yeah, roughly. Yeah, roughly.
Yeah. I don't know how many people pay, monthly, but that can be a bit lumpy in terms of some people paying all their dues at a particular time throughout the year. So just wanted to see what was with that.
Right. It is. There's a lot of seasonality to the revenue stream. The bulk of the revenues we get are July through December, and then they start tapering off, and that's in the budget for the last 6 months. It recognizes that fact that we've got a lot of the revenue stream gets pushed into those first 6 months, and then the remaining 6 months tend to be a cash flow management issue. So.
And that 30% was just a pessimistic estimate of how the pandemic would affect us.
Exactly.
We had nothing to base that on. It was just, let's try 30%.
Just exactly. We didn't know, but I thought 30% was roughly probably what would be a reasonable estimate. You know, some people on the board thought I was too optimistic. But at any rate, it turned out that it was a little too pessimistic. So, but
So
the issue will be recovering. You know, can we get back up to the levels that we've historically experienced once the virus issues are attenuated here? Any other questions? Okay.
Okay, well, let me take over then, and we'll
Yeah.
move on to the fun part of the meeting. We wanted to also give everyone an update regarding the Rabbinic Search Committee and their progress toward finding the next great rabbi for Congregation Sherry Torah. So I think Ann Prawl is our committee chairman, and let's chairperson, and we'll let her take the floor there for that.
Hi. It's a pleasure to get to update you on the activities of your search committee. We have been meeting. We've spent many hours making sure that we all end up with the right rabbi when our beloved rabbi does something else. So if you filled out the questionnaire, was it a year ago, maybe, about how you see the congregation and what you envision for our future and what you would like for our rabbi, we thank you from the bottom of our hearts, because we took all of the data that all the responses that everybody gave us, and we created a remarkable document of 35 pages, I think, describing ourselves and describing what our hopes and dreams are, and what our vision for the perfect rabbi would be, and what kind of congregation we are, and what our strengths and weaknesses are. And we submitted that to the Rabbinic Assembly, the Rabbinic Assembly of the conservative movement. And that is what the rabbis who are looking for jobs use to determine if they want to apply for a job at every synagogue. And we thought that we were just filling out all of these questions that they gave us the way that we were supposed to fill them out. But evidently we were very thorough, because everyone who has seen our 35-page tome has commented on how thorough it is and how fabulous it is and how well they have gotten to know our congregation because of it. So all because of your responses, I think that the rabbis who are applying have a really good idea of who we are and what they're applying for, which is critical to getting a good fit. So we have been meeting weekly, and we have been waiting for, we didn't have to wait very long after we got our questionnaire filled out, and we've gotten many responses, and some of them we ruled out, and some of them we did not rule out. Some ruled themselves out, and we ended up doing 5 interviews, 5 first wave interviews and 3 second wave interviews. So after 2 rounds of interviewing, we have 3 candidates to show to you, and I think you're going to be really impressed with all of them. I hope that somebody jumps out at you as the best, because we can't hire 3 people and they're all fabulous. So very soon, like in the next week, you are going to be receiving invitations to join us for to meet the first candidate. I believe the first candidate you're going to meet on weekdays. We're going to have to figure out what weekdays, because he doesn't have a weekend for us. Our goal is to have each rabbi come and meet with some interest groups, meet with the parents of the religious school, and meet with the board, and meet with people who take classes, and people who are members of the sisterhood or the brotherhood, and just to meet people in their different roles and interests in the synagogue, so that they get a feel for who we are. and have them teach a class or two, have them lead a service or two, so that you get to see them in their role as rabbi. And hopefully at the end of a couple of days of very intensive Zoom meetings, you will have a good sense of who they are, and they will have a better sense of who we are. That's going to happen 3 times in the month of February. So really, really quickly. And then we're going to solicit you for opinions, and we really need you to give us those opinions. We'll send you SurveyMonkey things. We will take your phone calls and emails and texts, and we will compile everybody's opinion and continue to meet as a committee. And the committee will hopefully be able to present one final candidate to the board for approval, and would like to get all of this done by Pesach. So it's a big adventure, and it's a lot to get done in a very short time. But having seen these candidates, I know that whoever we pick, we're going to be well off. So if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
You can also type questions into the chat and we'll moderate them.
So I just finished typing into the chat and I realized, well, wait a second, here's a moment to talk. One positive result from this pandemic is that we have been absolutely forbidden by the United Synagogue of Conservative Judaism and the Rabbinical Assembly from flying out rabbinical candidates to meet us in person.
How much money are we saving there?
We are saving big bucks. That's a possible $20,000 to $30,000 that we did not budget. So it doesn't really impact our budget because we didn't budget for it. But the good news is it's not an unexpected expense that to hit us here. So that's.
Yeah.
Can congregants see the interviews, or is it for the committee? There. Whoa, do we care? Oh my gosh, there's all sorts of things popping up in the all sorts of lovely questions
So,
popping up.
Anne, one of the
chat.
questions that came up
Here.
was, is there a reason the timeline is so quick? And I think.
Well, the reason that the timeline is so quick is that every other conservative synagogue in the country is doing exactly what we're doing right now. And if we wait, then our favorite candidate will be offered a job by somebody else. And most congregations want to be done by Pesach, so that, because we all have the same fiscal year, we're all starting at roughly the same time. We would like a rabbi in place in June if we can. So yeah, we're just competing with every other conservative congregation in the country. So
That's going through a search.
Everyone who's
is
searching,
going through a
not
search.
all the congregations in general.
right.
So another question.
We've already lost one candidate to another job offer. So we don't want to, we want to take that seriously and make sure that we all have the right information. We don't want to jump precipitously into choosing somebody, but we know that we're going to do these interviews, so we're going to do them quickly.
So some questions that are coming in are, do we care about the Rebbitzin, and do they have families? Can the candidate come visit? Can they afford to buy or rent a home?
I'm sure that we care about the Rebbitzin. We are not allowed to ask about the Rebbitzin because there are all kinds of rules about what you're allowed to question somebody about during an interview. I think all three rabbis are men, and all 3 of them have told us about their wives. So we
and children.
And their children. They all have wives, they all have children. And I just don't think that it's acceptable for us to ask the question of how involved is your wife planning to be with our congregation, because we're not hiring a Rebbitzin, we're hiring a rabbi. And well, whether they can afford to buy or rent a home in Portland is also not our business. They're applying for a job. They're going to have to make sure that they've done their research and that they can live in the city where they're applying to take a job.
And part of what the GANSA questionnaire that we filled out had a section about Portland, about its real estate market in and around our area. So we submitted information from the market at the time we were filling it out. So.
Yeah, all 3 And also have contacts in Portland, and they have people to be talking to here. So none of them are from here, but they all have contacts here. And will Rabbi Rose be able to offer some advice as to who would be a good selection? Yes, try and stop him. We will. We have already colluded with the rabbi quite a bit. When we created questions for our first round and our second round of interviews, we submitted those questions to Rabbi Rose and asked him for his input on, are we asking the right things? Are we phrasing it the right way? Are we forgetting to ask something that you think would be important? And he was really, really valuable and came back with all kinds of advice for us. So he has certainly been a part of this, and he has come and presented to the committee about having spent 7 years with this congregation and learned so much about us, what kind of rabbi he thinks, without knowing these 3 individual candidates, what kind of rabbi, what kind of presence would help move this congregation forward. So we're all taking his advice very seriously.
In addition to that, sorry, let me just say really quickly, in addition, a couple of the candidates reached out to me individually, as is quite common, just to ask questions about the shul, its direction, and so yeah, I've been involved, I think, in an appropriate way for the shul.
What is a conservative? Oh, smicha, a conservative smicha. Yes, all of the candidates that we are interviewing are vetted by the RA. They are all graduates of JTS. So I don't know about Daniel. This might be a bylaws. I don't know if the CVs and the interviews are available to the congregation at large, or if the congregation is to make its choices based on meeting the candidates at the virtual visit.
Well, according to our bylaws, it's actually the board who elects the rabbi. The purpose of meeting the congregants, meeting with the congregation, is so that the congregants can tell the board what they like and whom they like. So will the CVs and statements be made? Let's take that up in the search committee, and
yeah, I think it's something we can ask the rabbinic assembly about too, if that's something that is typically done. They've been very helpful with us through the process and getting us information about how this is done, because they've done it way more often than we have.
And by the way, the search committee is, as Margie has said, and she's a member of the committee, the search committee is composed of members from all over the congregation, people that you know, people that you've had at your Shabbos table, people whom you've met at the Kiddushas and baked hamantaschen with, and so.
And it's a good.
We're trying to keep this an open process.
It's a good cross section of ages and level of participation in the show and everything. It's a lot of people, so we have a good representation of everyone.
David Stern has had his hand up.
I'm sorry,
yes,
David.
You answered my concern.
Oh, okay.
Great. So are we done then? So look in your email boxes. You will be getting invitations to join Zoom gatherings quickly, and we hope to get as many people as possible to actually interact with these rabbi candidates. So be prepared to give us your opinions. Rabbi?
Yeah, I just wanted to say very, very briefly, I want people to be aware, just, I don't know, folks might not be aware that, when the search that's being done is really being done at with such quality and according to the guidance of the Rabbinical Assembly. And the reason that's relevant is that I want you to know that really anybody who is a candidate, whether they're a rabbinic candidate for who wants a congregation, whether they're right out of rabbinical school or whether they've been in another congregation, they, those eyes would have been on our shul. And so we're really, this is a big national search. And for those on the committee, that may sound too obvious to say, but this is a new approach for us, and it's really important because we're casting a wide net and it's really drawn in, from what I can tell, some superb candidates. And I've heard from a few of the candidates who reached out to me that Portland was definitely on the radar of the other rabbis and rabbinical students. As Anne alluded to, the form that was filled out very thoroughly. People saw that and mentioned to me how impressed they were by the work that had so clearly and evidently gone into it. People who have visited our website, a lot of traffic, people were very impressed with that. So I want people to know you should really be excited, because a really wide net for an incredible pool of rabbinic candidates was cast. And I think the folks who are coming in are going to be really an excellent choice for the shul.
Yeah, we have some serious abilities coming and applying for a job here. Some rabbis with great research abilities and great teaching abilities, and they're all of them mensches. They seem like really nice people, and yeah, I think you'll be pleased with what we're going to show you.
I had this crazy nightmare of the search process resulting in just one or two candidates, or worse, that it would only result in one good candidate, and that we'd have to choose whether we want to, quote, settle, unquote, for one good rabbi, or possibly postpone the search and get an interim rabbi for a year. But really, these top three candidates, and even one of the candidates that we did not advance to the second round, were really exceptionally good rabbis and would be a marvelous choice for our congregation. So we have this an embarrassment of riches, perhaps, in being able to choose from among these three rabbis. I'm really pleased with the results of the process.
So if you have friends among the congregation who are not at this meeting, please just spread the word by mouth and let people know that this is happening and that it's really, really important for everyone to participate, because everybody should feel like they had a say in choosing who our next spiritual leader is going to be.
And if you have Jewish friends in the community who are curious to see just what Congregation Sherry Torah is up to, and what Congregation Sherry Torah will look like in the coming years, urge them to come and see some of these visits. We are, we have not set the calendar specifically for each visit, so we'll be getting that announcement out to everyone very soon. But I'm really excited about this next step, and this is just amazing. I'm tickled.
I can tell you that one is coming the weekend of the 19th and one is coming the weekend of the 26th. We know that.
Okay.
But we don't know the days and the hours and everything like that. And the third candidate, who will probably be the first candidate that you see, we're going to fit into a weekday slot because, like I said, he can't come on a weekend. But do keep open the weekend of the 19th and the 26th. And it's unclear whether these rabbis are going to be leading a Shabbat service, because of the technology and the Zoom and everything, but almost certainly all of them will be leading a Sunday morning minyan. So if you're not a regular Sunday morning minyan person, plan to be one on the 20th and the 27th, on whatever the Sunday is of those weekends. No, the 21st and the 28th. Those are two Sundays that rabbis will be leading services. And if that's the most important thing for you, and that's the thing that you want to see how a rabbi is in services, then that will be great. We haven't figured out how it's going to happen.
I want to ask everyone to take 30 seconds, grab your calendar, and put those dates in your calendar to make sure that you are a part of that weekend. See, just like Sarah Sturts, be like Sarah. All right, really, it's so important. We have to remember that, while our shul, it has obviously a lot to recommend it, and I believe we're going to be at the top of a lot of people's lists. It's just important for us to remember that the candidates are interviewing us as well, and so we want to really show up in strength, in numbers, when they, just to show our interest, and also so you can get your own sense. So please mark your calendars and make every effort to be there.
And I imagine that the third candidate who's not going to do a Sunday minyan will do a Thursday minyan. So be thinking about that too.
And I have a question. For those candidates who are going to lead services, possibly leading services on Shabbat, will I have the possibility to review the service with them? Would they want my help in the services?
100%, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
You might actually want to meet with all three of them anyway. Well, you will have a chance to meet with all three of them anyway, because part of what they're doing when they come is to meet clergy, to meet staff, to meet the board. So they will be very interested in meeting with you.
Thank you.
All right. Now
All right.
you know everything.
Do we have any other questions to mull over?
I assume we pay for them to come here.
They're not coming.
They're not coming.
This is all going to be virtual.
Yes.
Right. So, yes.
And do any of them have a pulpit at this time somewhere else?
Two of them have a pulpit at this time, and one, they're all employed, and one does not have a pulpit.
Thank you.
The one who does not have a pulpit has previously served as a congregational rabbi, and he's currently working for a Jewish-related organization, and this is an opportunity for him to get back on the pulpit.
Thank you.
So I had asked in the chat, well, specifically, to make sure, for those of us who can't be part of a Shabbos Zoom, when should we actually block out on the calendar for these visits? For the ones who are coming those weekends, what times should we set aside?
We can't do that yet, Jack. I'm sorry. We haven't hashed out when the meetings are going to be.
But there will be some non-Shabbos times available.
Well, they will be there for Sunday, yeah, and they'll come on Friday afternoon. I imagine that they'll do a Kabbalat Shabbat before Shabbos begins on Friday, and then they will have Sunday for other meetings.
Good, thank you. And the other question, which was coming also, was, do we know yet? We should talk at some point as far as reopening the shul for services as people get vaccinated, but not part of this particular issue. Thank you.
We can release the names of the candidates, can't we, Daniel?
I guess so, yeah.
I mean, as we're announcing the visit, the schedules for the visit, we'll say this is Rabbi so-and-so. We can put their picture up and everything, so you'll know who's coming.
Super. And then you can Google them. They all have video of themselves giving lectures and leading, well, two of them do.
Right. We just ask that people not start reaching out to them. Let them come to us in the virtual world before we start bombarding them.
Yeah, save your questions for them for when they're with us, because when they're not with us right now, because of what's going on in the synagogue world, they are interviewing with other synagogues. That's why they're all so busy. So don't reach out to them until they're here. Cool.
Daniel, you're on mute.
It had to be said at least once in every meeting.
Exactly, and of course it has to be the technologically focused alleged professional. We have made it clear to each of these candidates that we are looking for a rabbi who can remain with us for a a good number of years, not somebody who's just here for a short time and then looking for some other opportunity. So having said that, several of the rabbis who have applied to us have anticipated our feelings on this and have specifically expressed to us before even the question was asked that they are looking for some place where they can be on what in the employment world could be called a permanent basis or a long-term basis. So the three candidates, none of them are a year or two away from retirement. They're all folks who we can hope and expect to stay with us for a long time.
Can we ask how old they are?
Not legally, we can't.
No, but when you get to meet them, you can kind of figure it out from how old their children are and when they finished school and how many congregations they've been in. You're legally bound by, I don't know who creates these rules, but yeah.
Oregon Bureau of Labor and Industry, and then furthermore by federal statutes.
Yeah.
But the committee is limited. We can't ask the questions. However, it's my understanding that if you're having a casual conversation with these people as a congregation, any kind of conversation that you wish to have with them is okay if they choose to answer it, but we can't ask for it.
Oh.
And we're not looking for ways to work around the laws.
No, they all seem to be the right age to be our rabbi.
Thank you, Ann. That's what I was looking to say.
They've all in the interviews have told us about their families and their children, so we didn't ask, but they all brought it up, which has been helpful, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So in the chat, Allison Fowler, who's on the committee and who is our HR professional we keep turning to say, is it kosher or not? She said it is not okay for anyone to ask their age. So
don't ask.
So just like, a lady doesn't have an age, she has a birthday. Just treat everyone as you would treat a lady. And my 50th birthday is coming up soon, so just letting you all know.
But in 10 years?
Next month.
Eli has asked if the shul will be opening up soon for folks who are fully vaccinated for a small service or something. There is an ad hoc committee to reopen the shul that we formed, months ago, and came to a conclusion that we would not be opening up soon. However, soon is approaching, so we are going to be re-energizing that ad hoc committee to discuss something more concrete about when we'll be opening up. And again, right. Eli says summertime service outside. Right. We are really excited about that.
So yes. So I've been talking with my colleagues here in the community and across the country, and we're all saying, as the vaccines roll out and what's going on in our individual communities and what rates are, what numbers are doing and what, how do we set metrics, just the way we had this conversation when we first started wading into these deeper waters. And we'll be weighing all the factors and making the best informed decisions and the safest decisions to make sure everyone stays healthy. For instance, I know I'm not going to be in any kind of vaccination pool probably until July or August. So y'all have good services without me. And also to see how this continues to roll out and what happens with the mutations that are floating around. So if there's no other business, Daniel, I think you probably asked to adjourn, and then we can all come on screen and unmute ourselves and tell each other who we're rooting for or not rooting for in the big game.
Oh yeah, there's some kind of sports ball thingy going on. Yeah. Thank you all, each and all, so much for your spending the time with us today and helping us take care of this matter of approving the budget. And just so happy to be able to share the good news of our search process. And Thanks. Let's call this meeting adjourned then.
Yasher koach.
Gal- Oh no, we were all muted for a moment.
If y'all want to unmute and say
You can-
hello and wave,
Hi, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Lovely to
thank
see
you for taking the time this morning.
Lynn, there you are. Hi.
Oh. Eva, how's the beach?
Jack, Riva, hi.
The beach is sunny and I can't wait to go there. After lunch, I'm taking the kids and going out. So it's very nice. Yeah. Yesterday, really quick, we went for a walk. It wasn't supposed to rain and then it was a downpour. So we had a 30-minute walk back to the house. It was terrible.
It's wonderful to see so many people here today and see the interest. And please, if you know of someone who isn't computer literate or doesn't know how to get on Zoom or whatever, when we're having these chances to see the candidates, would you please help them out as much as you possibly can? Maybe if you, in small numbers, could have a guest or at least could explain to them how they do it. A lot of people have computers, but they just don't know how to go about it. And so if you can reach out to your congregational neighbors so that as many people as possible get an opportunity, I know the people on the committee would appreciate it.
Call the shul for limited technical support. Hey, Jason. Hey, Trevor. Good to see you guys.
Good to see everybody.
Hi, Jerry Newman.
Jerry.
Hey, Jerry.
I love my Jerry.
Richard, Melissa, howdy.
Oh, look, Leslie's here, Daniel. You haven't seen her in a long time.
Yeah, it's true.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much for taking the time. Have a good rest of your day.
All right, thanks, May. Thanks, Daniel.
Thanks.
Great
Judy.
to
Thanks,
see you
Ann.
all.
Wonderfully presented. Thank you, Alana.